Good afternoon, friends, to whichever part of the globe you belong to. I am Professor Dinesh Desai, welcoming you on this module and presentation on project management. So, friends, this is the beginning of our module, and we will be addressing various facets in relation to project management. And when I say various facets, we would be debriefing elements. So, we will be covering this entire subject and module on project management in around 6 to 7 lectures, and the topics that we will be revolving around when it comes to project management would be: one, in today's lecture we will be looking into introduction to project management. We'll also looking into, as we move forward, into effective project management. We'll be also looking into aspects of organizing and planning in project management. We'll be also looking into timelines with regards to PM, abbreviated form of project management. So timelines in relation to PM. We'll also look into aspects about the managerial role when it comes to PM, or if I am to put it in perspective, the human resource perspective when it comes to project management. We'll also look into various systems that exist in the management of a project. So systems are driven technologically, few are driven by human resource system, few by the strategic management team as well. So this would be covered as well, and we'll also look into how a project management is evaluated, measured, and how a feedback loop and a feed forward loop is created when it comes to project management. This is what we are going to cover in the entire modules of around 6 to 7 lecture series. So friends, before we delve into today's arena, let me give you an overarching situation how every module or every session will run through. Number one, we will always start with what has been covered from before. Since today is the first lecture, so we don't have any past reference to back it up, but we'll always start with what has been covered. Two, we will give an outline of what the today's module agenda would be. So two is something that we'll start off today, and three, then we will detail out every aspect when it comes to project management. And also, as we begin to start, I also request you that as you are hearing this to our module, my request would be to take a paper and a pen, write down important things, and so that you can have a reference point of view, because they say when we are in an online kind of lecture tool or medium, it is always better that we jot down certain points, and it's always a great thought and a great belief that they say if you want to think it, ink it, because writing crystallizes thoughts. You can always go back and refer back. It always helps from the perspective of examination as well. And you can also, if you want to put up a query, if you want to put your thoughts, if you want to find some case studies about it, you can always refer it back. That's how the method works when it comes to learning, because they say if you don't have learning strategies, then towards learning anything, then it's quite a task. And as you are also beginning to start listening to this video, my request also is to be just check your awareness, check your listening score. Are you really listening and fully present here and now at this point of time as we go and start the module, right? So on this note, we start with our first module, and so today's module we would be discussing on introduction to project management. So let me tell you what we are going to discuss and take it forward. So learning objectives, couple of them. Number one, understand growing needs for better project management, especially for information system. or computer technologies, that's where it actually originated big time. When we are speaking into a 21st century of project management, we're also looking into what project management is and discuss various elements of project management framework. So I'm sure friends, uh, project management as a word is being colloquially so many times we use it. We have heard, if some of you are already employed in any organization, you might always have these designations of project head or project lead or key project manager or assistant project manager. So all this are pertaining primarily saying that there exists a project. So the point we want to drive home the point is that when we are speaking of project management, it's being colloquially very used as well. So our learning objective also would be to figure out where does it stand as well. Few other key objectives from today's module would be discuss how project management relates to other disciplines. So we are also looking uh, project management not from a particular set of things but also from a bigger perspective. Now let's take simple examples like apart from organizational example, let's just take simple examples. Now planning a picnic or planning a vacation, can that be also a personal project? For sure. Planning a financial saving plan for a year or 5 years, or wealth building, for example, a personal wealth building, could itself be a project. Now let's boil down also to smaller elements. Planning your day itself uh, is a project in itself. So maybe a to-do list, for example, is a detailed implication of a project. So to-do list is also a project outline. So from that scale to bigger scales as well is the span and the bandwidth when we are speaking of project management. We also would like to understand where did it originate historically in terms of project management. We'll also describe the project management profession, including recent trends. So we'll also look into what are the roles when it comes to the people involved in project management. So we will be covering in today's lecture. What we would be doing is we will have a good bird's eye view on the entire subject of project management. And from the next lecture onwards, what we will do is we will pull out each aspect, each facet about it, and then detail it in length. That's what we are going to do when it comes to the subject. So, but today, in today's lecture, we will have a bird's eye view. We'll kind of look into the major aspects involved. Great. So let's start from statistics. Now, they say that project management by and large are numbers. Yes, there involves a task. Yes, there involves a function. Yes, there involves an activity, but they're all measured. So since project is associated with management and management's key philosophy also applies in project management, and the philosophy is that if you can't measure anything, you can't manage that. So if you want to really manage well, you need to find tangibles, and let's find few important tangibles that are associated with project management. And let me tell you, friends, these are some startling numbers, and these numbers are significant, substantial, and that's the reason why we're discussing this. So by this we would be getting into the facet about why project management. Let's take the number one economy of the world. The US spends $2.3 trillion on projects every year, an amount equal to 1/4 of the nation's gross GDP. So 1/4 of US projects is equivalent to the GDP, and that amount to 2.3 trillion. That means that all organizations, be it government or non-government for that matter, pull up projects and work on it. Similarly applies to other nations as well. And 1/4 of GDP is some size. The world as a whole spends nearly 10 trillion of its 40 trillion million gross production on products of all kinds. So another startling figure, 1/4 again. More than 16 million people regard project management as a profession. On average, a project management earns more than $82,000 per year. That's some size. Now, these are various references to back it up. So, the point, friends, which I need to put across on the table for discussion is the numbers. Now, understand the numbers we are speaking are in $1 trillion. Now, that is huge size. Now, let me tell you that Indian economy is touching $1 trillion. Is $100 trillion when it comes to the Indian entire economy. Now we are speaking almost 1/4 globally as well comes under project. So that also means that if 1/4 of the business function is contributing to its GDP under the banner of project management, that means that anything that we can impact on the project in terms of cost, efficiency, in terms of time, in terms of scope, function, activities will make a huge substantial difference to GDP as well. So more than 1 million new information technology application development were initiated during 2001, up from 3 lakh in 2000. So the projects that are undertaken also has been substantially increasing in the last 2 decades, which has gone up almost 20 to 50 times more than what it was. Famous business authors and consultants are stressing the importance of project management. As Tom Peters, now this is very important statement, as Tom Peters writes in his book Reinventing Work, the Project 50, is to win today, you must master the art of project. And that's a very important statement at this point of time. This is in businesses are run on projects, because whenever an entrepreneur, an organization seeks work from another organization, it undertakes it as project. That means that if an organization also has to excel, do well, prosper, economize, that means that it has to take its projects really well. Motivation study for studying information on IT in project management. They say that the IT projects have a terrible track record. Now, they say that when we are speaking of 21st century, lot of our projects, now they say that the entire GDP of the world, the major driving force was the IT industry. And the IT industry, since it comes with lots of offshore work, outsourcing, third party, outsourcing, and these outsourcing of work happens under the banner of project. And if that is the case, that means in 1995, the Standish group found that only 16% of IT projects were successful and over 31% were cancelled before completion, costing over 81 billion in the US alone. Now, since we are saying that IT as an industry were the major driving force of a GDP, that standalone in US was lagging at 16% or didn't complete on time, 33%, which is substantial. The need for the IT projects keeps increasing though, on the other hand. So in 2000, there were 3 lakh new IT projects, And in 2001, over 5 lakh new IT projects were started. So on one side, since the boom of IT industry, we are having a huge thrust when it comes to IT projects. That's one side. The other side, it's also being experienced that the dip when it came to completion of time, the dip when it came to the results, that objectives were met to what was actually met, there's a huge difference. So that means that there was a gross mismatch when it came to these two functions. Now, why these numbers were important right at the start of the module is the question, friends. Any idea? And as you are well aware that the numbers are huge when it comes to the IT platform. And since IT platform in the last 2-3 decades has been driving the GDP world over, and projects also exist in other domains as well, that means that if we can really handle these numbers well, economize this well, make it more system friendly and efficient more, then it becomes easier to maneuver with. So better control of financial, physical and human resources, improved customer relationships, shorter development times, lower cost, higher quality and increased reliability, higher profit margins, improved productivity, better internal coordination, higher work morale, is all these areas are impacted by efficient project management. So if you want to summarize this slide, they say that anything that impacts these 4 elements will increase the value of the system. They say cost, quality, convenience, time. So if any project could be helpful in reducing cost, that's value. Second we mentioned was quality. Any project that helps to improve the quality of product or services, that's value. Third, first was cost, 2 was quality, third was convenience. Any system that makes or gives the end customer convenience of time, convenience of ease to do things. Now you see that any of the systems that a customer is at the receiving end, you will find ease of use is very highlighted. Now ease of use could be in terms of apps, ease of use could be in terms of purchase, ease of use could be in terms of know-how, ease of use could be in terms of delivery, ease of use could be in terms of knowledge transfer, ease of use could be in terms of any facets. The point is convenience is value. So first was cost, 2 quality, third convenience, and fourth time. Now we know that in this fast-paced world, time is precious. So anything that we can reduce on cost, on time, adds value to the system. So cost, quality, convenience, time are the 4 parameters that project management indirectly affects on. So if you take one by one, we'll figure this out. For example, better control of financial and human resource leads to lesser cost. Improved customer relationship, convenience. Shorter development times, time. Lower cost, directly implies cost. Higher quality and increased reliability, again quality. Higher profit margins, that again means lesser cost. Improved productivity, efficiency. Better internal coordination is convenience, and higher work morale again is convenience. So the objective of project management is primarily to impact 4 elements: cost, quality, convenience, and time. So let's start off with the premise itself. What is a project? Now we have been referring time and again PM project management. Let's start with what is the project. Let's define. So we will also, the objective is also in today's lecture, we will try to look project management. First we'll define it. First we have got to why. So we have done with why we want to study project management. Now we come into the what. That means definition. What is project management? And we will also in today's lecture try to look into project management from different perspectives, from different angles, and see how the impact goes. So that when we flesh out data in our forthcoming sessions, it will be easier to address. So, what is the project? So, project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to accomplish a unique product or service. Let's redefine it. It is a temporary endeavor. Now, understand, it is not a permanent endeavor. Temporary means it will have timelines. Endeavor is the intention. Undertaken to accomplish, to manufacture a product or deliver a service. Based on textbook reference. Now, attributes of what all characteristics are there that define a project. One, it has a specific, defined, unique purpose. Two, it is temporary. That means it has timelines. Three, it requires resources, often from various areas. So, it definitely requires resources. They are often from different areas. Should have a primary sponsor and a customer and involve uncertainty. Now the last point is interesting. It involves uncertainty. Now, friends, very important to understand this. Now, uncertainty is something that is very, very detrimental, and that's the reason project can go on losses. Project doesn't come on deliver on time. So uncertainty because of uncertainty of resources, uncertainty of pestle, political conditions, geographical locations, the environment of socioeconomic climate, so on and so forth. So from this slide we are clear what project is. Project is actually a temporary endeavor to accomplish either a product or a service, and the attributes being it is temporary, it has a unique purpose, it requires resource from diversified fields, and it also requires a primary source, sponsor. That means it requires a customer, and we also know that the project lives in an uncertain environment. Now, why uncertain we are calling this? Because since the project is for a specific duration, for example 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. So longer the duration of a project, uncertainty is high, because with changing times so many things change, and hence it's very difficult to forecast things that would exist 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line based on current data. You definitely can forecast, you can definitely make evaluations feed forward, but your accuracy would always be challenged, and that is a big challenge when it comes to project management. So that's one way to look at it. Let's look at it from some other perspective. Can we look into some other ways we can define project management? So it is a group. So some other way to define it. So it's a group or milestone, group of milestones or phases, activities, and or tasks that support an effort to accomplish something. Some other way to define it. And management, as we know, it's a process of planning, organizing, control, and measuring. So understand, friends, whenever you hear the word management, 4 things would always come up. Irrespective of your hearing, learning in project management, organizational management, strategic management, marketing management, 4 things will always be there: planning, organizing, controlling, measuring. And these are the four pillars of management. And this has to be so this is one thing that you can write it down as of now. So when we think of any management, these four things will come in automatically: planning, organizing, controlling, measuring. So applies to project as well. So we mentioned that project is in this other definition, it's a set of milestones where phases, activities, or functions are carried out to accomplish something. Some other way to look at it. Now, friends, it's important to understand. Now, when we were in schools as children, a lot of time when we spoke of definition, we always had this mindset about when you want to define something, we always had, okay, this is one definition and this is the only definition. But as we grow up and look into life from different perspectives, we get to know there is no one way of looking at things, and so is definition as well. We can define it in many ways, and so very important to understand this. We should be able to define one thing from various ways. What does it give us? It gives a holistic approach. It gives a view from multi-dimension, and that's so very helpful. Another way to define a project: it is a collection of linked activities carried out in an organized manner with a clearly defined start point and end point. So a start point and end point is clearly defined to achieve some specific results desired to satisfy the needs of the organization at the current time. So here the emphasis, if you see the capital words, are start point and end point. So here more emphasis in this definition is given to the timelines. So a set of activities to carry a desired objective with a specific set of start point and end point. So very important for project. Another way to look at it, it's a dynamic process. Now, friends, are you looking at from the perspective, it's a dynamic process. Now, this is a key word for this definition. Why dynamic? Because we know project keeps on the nature, the characteristic, the intensity, the impact, the resources within any kind of activity, task, function of a project keeps on changing, evolving, growing, declining, accelerating, and hence it's dynamic. So it's a dynamic process that utilizes the appropriate resources of the organization in a controlled and structured manner to achieve some clearly defined objectives identified as needs. Now there are two words, one is dynamic, second needs. Now understand, any project, when it is coupled up and targeted and focused towards needs, then it becomes very relevant and important, and hence the energy, the resources, the risk factor associated with carrying out this becomes more pronounced, more intentional about it. It always conducted within a defined set of constraints. Now, this slide or this way of defining mentions that there are constraints. For example, if for any project constraint exists, constraint could be of time, and one of the generally found constraint based on my experience as well has been constraint of resources, and resource is a big challenge. Now take an example that you are preparing something for a chemical manufacturing plant has taken up a project of some other organization. For example, a small chemical factory picks up a project for Hindustan Lever. Now in Hindustan Lever he picks up the project, and he gets the contract. Now in that case, it is very important, and suppose this small company takes up a project for Hindustan Lever, and the project is for say 2 years, and they are preparing, say for example, uh, uh, a washing powder, and there are fine chemicals involved about it. Now, it's very important to understand, friends, that if they're taken a project for 2 years, when we are looking in constraints, we need to understand that the price that they quote for a year or 2 year is bound to change. And certain chemicals that they might be using it, and which they themselves might be using it from third party, what if the vendors don't provide it, or vendors tend to increase? Suppose a transportation strike happens, the goods are not available. There are so many constraints. So when we speak of project management, one highlighting feature always comes in, which is a part of dynamic nature of the activity, is they work in a defined constraint, and that's a very important to understand. So by now you might be understanding different facets which are important from a perspective of project management. So first, we have understood from one definition, it is a set of milestones, and there it was mentioned group of activities being done. Two, timelines was important, start and end. We also in one end mentioned the dynamic nature and the set of constraint. This is what the various important touch points were there when it came to different facets. Now let's get into what does project management entail. Entailment consists of, or what characteristic project management holds. So what does it entail? It entails one, planning. So planning is the most critical and gets the least amount of our time. Now we need to understand very clearly, since management is associated with the project, the four pillars will always come in, and we would look at what are the touch points at which they would be connected. So one, planning. So beginning with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey always mentioned in his uh, uh, management measures of highly effective people, that you should always know, when we are speaking of a project management, it's always good to know what is it that I want to achieve by this time. So beginning with the end in mind, planning. So you can only plan well if you know, for example, if you are taking a ship in the sea, you should know where your ship is going. Organizing. So once we have a plan, we also need to execute that plan. So we need to have organized. So plan is all about paperwork. It's a blueprint. It's a layout. Organizing, it's about, from this layout, whatever we have planned, how is it that we can take this plan and bring it to real life scenario. That means that we will find the resources, we will look into people associated, we'll look into factors involved in it. So we'll see organizing is orderly fashion where contingent prerequisites are coupled together. Then is controlling. So once you have planned well, once we have organized it, the third is controlling. Now controlling is critical if we are to use our limited resources wisely. Now why they say control and check were always one of the mechanisms of management right from Roman Empire. So control was definitely one of the, if you see all kingdoms, right from Roman kingdom to Indian kingdoms to Egyptian era, control was one of the measures always being adopted. So one of the management styles. The third was control, and the fourth part of management also is measuring. And we have always mentioned that if you can't measure, you can't manage. As simple as that. So if you really want to manage business, manage projects, small projects, big projects, you need to have measurements. and you can measure if you have tangibles, if you have something to measure on scale. So measuring is to determine what we accomplished, the goal or met the target. So it's about how do we know we have achieved our goal? It's a good question to ask. So suppose they say our project is completed. So how do we know your project is completed? So what things you are measuring? So a project is completed because this much galatons of oil need to be given to this location by this time, and that is being done. So being specific is terrific in management, and so applies to project management as well. The more specific you are, the more sharper you are. So questions on measuring helps. How do you know you have achieved your target? Do I have the tangible measurements as well? And being tangible is so very important. Now, in various aspects of business, not everything could be measured. But if you have some, let's take a simple example. Let's take an example of a soft skill, commitment. Now, commitment, I hope you have heard this word, commitment. So the question is, can you measure commitment? Now, one of the competencies that is mapped in appraisal and also part of it that is looked on in all organizations is how can we bifurcate or get to know two people on the level of commitment. So we should to have tangibles, because commitment can have different meanings to different people and natural biases and prejudices might take over. So how do you measure commitment? So we pick a few tangibles. Let me give examples of tangibles on commitment. For example, coming on time in the office, is it a sign and symptom of commitment? Yes. Having planned holidays is the sign of commitment? Yes. Seeing somebody who is always open to, he's proactive and always contributes his thoughts, is it a sign of commitment? Yes. So these are the tangibles. So whenever we are assigning a project on appraisal system, then appraisal itself is a project, isn't it? So all companies, normally we are sitting in the month of March, so normally appraisals happens in March, April for majority of organizations, and appraisal itself is an internal project for the HR team. So what I'm going to highlight is the more tangibles we have to measure, it becomes easier. So all four pillars of management are used in project management as well, right from planning, organizing, controlling and measuring as well. All four tools basically used here as well. So we can measure various facets, we can measure various dimensions about it, right from are we efficient? Now at this point of time, friends, we need to be clear about how efficiency and effectiveness are different. We need to be very clear about what is effectiveness and what is efficiency. So they say effective is when we know you are hitting the target as per expected. That's effectiveness. What is efficiency? Efficiency is consistently delivering results over a period of time. And also, can I reduce my time of delivering consistent results? Now that is efficiency. So are we efficient? Are we productive enough? Are we doing a good job? Or what is the outcome? Isn't what we want it to be? If you can't plan it, you can't do it. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So these are few questions that are definitely asked when it comes to measuring project management. Okay, now also, so we have started with the slide with why. Why do you want to learn project management? Because the numbers say so. Because because project itself contributes to 1/4 of GDP, and hence any difference that you can make to this impacts GDP, and hence the profit as well. That was the why. To what we have defined project management with various definitions. And third, who uses it? So nearly everyone in some degree, isn't it? I mean, need not necessarily that project management only needs to be taken it only as an organizational jargon. Now look at it, people plan their days, their weeks, their vacations, their budgets, and keep a simple project management known as also a to-do list. So even a to-do list that we do daily to align ourselves, to really focus our energy and resources is also a part and parcel of project management. Any process or means used to track tasks or efforts towards accomplishing a goal could be considered a project management. So any task that we are looking forward can be considered as project management. Why it is used? It is used? One, it's necessary to track or measure the progress we have achieved towards the goal we wish to accomplish. So because we know that measurement is the key pillar when it comes to management. We use project management to aid us in maximizing and optimizing our resources to accomplish our goals. Now these are capitalized words, maximizing and optimizing. That means we maximize the results and we with optimization of resources. So how we can achieve more with less resources is part of project management. How much time does project management take? Now, since time is a very important variable in this business, we need to understand this. So, not much. Probably more time is wasted as a consequence of lack of project management tool that is to spend to plan adequately, organize, control effectively, and measure appropriately. Since there is no standard structure as to how the program is going to detail out, sometimes a lot of time is lost because there is no project management in place. How long? As long as there are things to do. So they say how long a project should be managed and controlled, so long as there are things to do, there are tasks to do, there are activities to do, there are functions to do. So one of the key variables in is managing time. Why is project management important? Just to recap on whatever we discussed so far, enables us to map out a course of action or work plan. Let me give another analogy to describe you, friends. Now, if some of you who love trekking, which I do as well, if you're trekking a mountain and you want to reach the topmost peak of a mountain, and that's what the objective is, suppose. Now there are various ways you can travel and go to the top of the mountain, and there are no single ways. But we know that if you want to reach the top of the mountain within 5 days, 2 days, whatever days, because that's the resource, and you have limited amount of food supply, water supply, etc., or medical aid as well, within that time space and resource, how we can reach faster, which route to map it in such a way that with minimum resources we can reach the pinnacle of the mountain. So which route to take helps us to think systematically and thoroughly. When I say systematically, it's about holistic thinking. It looks into from different dimensions. It looks into from different perspectives as well. It's a unique task. It has a specific, clear-cut defined objective. Variety of resources are used, and it's also time bound, and these are the reasons where it impacts it as well. Advantages, and whatever we have seen as the why will essentially come out as fallouts in terms of advantages. It builds monetary, in building monetary and sequencing, easy and early identification of bottlenecks, activity-based costing, identification and addition of missing and new activities, preempting unnecessary activity or expenditure. Now, if you look into this topic itself, preempting unnecessary activity and expenditure, they say that one of the way to increase profits is also cut downing on cost. Now, it could be as elementary as a cost as cuts in electricity. So a lot of time we tend to waste electricity at offices, at home as well, which go unused. So if somebody is having, for example, a plan to build wealth as a project, now it could be a personal plan, an organizational plan. Personal plan, they say that building wealth, for example, let's take on a personal context. Now, building wealth, people generally equate building wealth with how much you earn more. Yes, one of the methods. But there are other dimensions as well. It's not only about how much you earn as well, but it's also about how much you save. So they say that and it's a good saying as well, it comes as a good thought process as well, and it's very important to know and understand as well. What you save is what you earn. I repeat, what you save is what you earn. So applies to all contexts as well. Even from an organizational perspective, whatever you can save in terms of electricity cost, in terms of stationery, in terms of equipments, in terms of time, all saving adds up to the net value or gross value. Timely completion is, we have mentioned, it is value. Assigning tasks and reporting. Now, friends, the important question arises, how is reporting a part of project management? Now, tell me, what does reporting gives us? Reporting is actually a process. We all know that, isn't it? Reporting is a controlling process. So that with reports, it's a feedback that comes in as what's happening, what are the internal things that have been done, and hence accordingly things could be organized still better, and then efficiency and productivity could go up. So this is the reason why advantages of project management. So let's look into the various roads or routes to have a good project management. One, find a project plan that fits your style of project management needs. So one, always need identification, as the management saying goes, and as Abraham Maslow's philosophy goes as well, identifying needs based on which it need to be driven. It may be as simple as creating templates, forms, and spreadsheets to track tracks. So it's also about, when it comes to measuring, you can have spreadsheets, templates, Excel sheets. Formation of project management committee. So somebody really, there is a team that drives the project. Listing out all the tasks and subtasks to accomplish a goal. So it's also about listing, sorting things as well, so that the task is allocated. Jot down the time period and person responsible against each task and subtask. It's also about aligning whom to what, so that role assignment becomes important. So it's not just about detailing the task of what it should to be done, but a good project manager also assigns people based on task as well. So it's about whom to what as well, because if the person doesn't fit into the role, the person might be talented, the person might be good with his skill, expertise and knowledge, but if he's not fit in for that role, then it's a challenge. So seeing the right fit is so very important. And Road to better project management are identifying a project manager. So very important is to identify who would lead this project. Is he a visionary? Is he able to micromanage or macromanage based on flexibility of the situation? Identify task managers. So we should the project manager need to know who would be my drivers, who are my performers, who are goal oriented. Sequence the activities in relation to time period. So one side we have task and the other side we have time. So the task to be completed within these deadlines. Present to the project managing committee. Finalize by reaching an agreement and start work. So the team sits down, it discusses, it looks into the various facets of the fact and goes forward. Then comes the implementation. So how does this team takes this forward at a real-time forward? And those are regular monitoring. So monitoring of, so once from the blueprint or the layout, it's gone to the workplace, it's about regular monitoring. It's about resource support. What all support is required. Critical issues discussed and solutions. Meeting with the team on completion of each major milestone. Looking into how each of these people can come together to form a milestone. Track the progress to the plan. So tracking is not just at the end point, but tracking at every point of time. And that's the reason when we have projects, weekly trackers are made. So various touch points are there where weekly numbers are tracked. They say the achievement to delivery is tracked on a weekly basis, fortnightly basis. It is tracked to task as well. System to add delete tasks in the PMT as well. So the technical support system is also there where during the course of time few of the activities could be deleted, edited or added as well, any of those. Okay, let's also look into what if we don't use a project management. What is the cost? In short, cost could be delay, and we have seen the first slide itself when it comes to statistics. 16% of the project undertaken were delayed. And is delaying itself gives the cost? Yes. It hampers, it disvalues, it does an unbranding, so on and so forth. So one cost is delay. 2, the actual financial cost involved. 3, waste of resources. So sometimes if you're not able to mobilize our resources in a systematic manner, in a manner that could be used appropriately, it becomes important. Quality becomes important. So what project management does lead into is also giving real quality product to the end customer. Dissatisfaction and delay can lead to dissatisfaction. And we mentioned about unbranding. So the brand name could be tarnished if there's a delay, or if the customer is dissatisfied. It could really result in dissatisfaction as well. So all this is a cost when it comes to PMT. So we say that when we speak of project management, it's about not only working hard but also smart working. So generally there's an old saying, they say, is it in today's world, is hard work more important or smart work? And I'm sure in today's time that we are living in, many people will prompt and go for smart work. But friends, understand that it's not this or that. It's both. So it's not about just smart work or just hard work. It's a combo of both. In certain situations, we require hard work. Putting this many hours for that becomes important, detrimental. So it's a combination of both. Within hard working, we can be smart, and within smart, it can be hard work. So it's a combo actually. So smart work. So we have, when we speak of constraint, we have mentioned that in one of our definition, when we speak of project management, constraint is always people will land up. Now let's take a common constraint that people land up at. Constraint of resources. Now because the time that project was started, the resources were different than what exists today. Possibly customer now after 1 year of start of project has altered or changed what they need. So as the project is running, they are changing the needs as well because their needs are changing as well. Now with this coming in, the project is getting more complicated. The task and the subtasks that were allocated need to still fine tune, streamline, organize. So every project is constrained in different ways by its scope, time and cost goals. So scope goals are what is the project trying to accomplish? Time, how long? Cost, what should it cost? So it is a project manager's duty to balance these often connecting goals. So constraints are a combination which are three-dimensional and which are related to each other are in terms of scope goals, the cost goals and the time goals. And a project manager should be right upfront, which should be part of the plan as well, should be addressing this as well. In 2001, the Standish group showed desired improvement area. Now, this report is a fascinating report which showed that among the existing projects that were taken, what were the points or what were the areas that improvements could be looked at. Those areas were: 1. Time overruns significantly, decreased from 163% compared to 222%. So one of the impact of using a project management was the time delay was shortened. Even if it is much small, but it's important. Cost overrun were down to 125% compared to 189. Still it was high, but it's reduced. Required features and functions were up to 67% compared to 61% higher. 78,000 US projects were successful compared to 28,000. So even if you compare number to number as well, the number of projects that were completed itself were high as well. And 28% of IT projects succeeded compared to 16%. So even in terms of percentage and numbers, the project completion was high, and on all the parameters as well, it tend to score better. So reasons why were these improvements because of PMT? 1. The average cost of the project has been more than cut in half. So more than the cost. So one method that we spoke about in the past is about cutting costs. How can I cut my cost? With my existing process. So if 3 people are doing a job, can 2 people do the same job and one could be deployed to doing something else? Can machine time be optimized? So when it comes to machines, all of TQM procedures were adopted in terms of optimizing machinery. Better tools have been created to monitor and control progress. So now with the IT revolution, we have better systematic visual representation of the system and process. And hence, since they're integrated as well, we have a better overlook of any small change being done over here changes the entire system. So all those impact could be measured as well. Better skilled project managers with better management process being used. And these were the prime parameters because of which it has been seen that it has been better compared to the earlier ones. Another way to look at project management. So project management is the application of the knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities in order to meet project requirements. So here now we are defining it in a way that it is an application of ask, the attitude, skill, knowledge, experience and expertise to do the required demands. And this by definition comes from the project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK, as we always have been referring right from the beginning. So if you look at the framework, so let's look at the infrastructure, the framework that applies to it. So let's look at it this way. Now, important friends to understand that for an organization, it is not just one project that is running. Now, very important to understand this. Now, if an organization has only one project, it's pretty simple, isn't it? But since any organization is into multiple projects simultaneously, hence it is important how do we connect, integrate this well becomes important. Let's take a simple household itself. Now for household, there are multiple small things happening simultaneously. As small project, you will not call it project from a personal perspective, but many things happen, isn't it? Like for example, of a small family of 5, there will be an education part for the children. There would be a project related to the household, that means who will manage the house. There would be a project associated with saving when it comes to household. There would be a project with related to expenses in terms of working expense, electricity, bills and so on and so forth. There would be a project related to vacation for the family. So there are multiple things also running simultaneously as well. Similarly applies for organization as well. So they say there are 9 core knowledge functions, and we will look into one by one how these 9 are interrelated and integrated as well. So first, the project stakeholders. Now it is so very important. Who are stakeholders? Stakeholders are people who are impacted by the project. So stakeholders are the people involved in or affected by the project activities. So one is people who are involved or affected. Stakeholders include who all? 1. The project sponsor and project team, support staff, customers, users, suppliers and operants of the project. So it could be any of those. The stakeholders could be any of those or all of those. So it could be a combination. So stakeholders are not one, they are often many. So there are 9 different management knowledge areas, and those are: first, 4 core knowledge areas related to specific projects, activities, that is scope, time, cost and quality. These are the 4 core knowledge project areas. Second 4, they are facilitating those knowledge areas, and those facilitating are human resource, communication, risk and procurement management. The first 4 are basically the process, that is scope, time, cost and quality. The next 4 knowledge are facilitating those processes. 1 human resource, communication, risk and the procurement team. 1 knowledge area, so this is 4 plus 4, 8, and we are speaking of 9. 1 knowledge area is something that integrates its all. So it's a project integration management effect and is affected by all other knowledge areas. So there are 4 knowledge areas primarily. That is, 1 is scope, time, cost and quality. The other 4 are the facilitating these knowledge areas. That is human resource. That's about human resource, communication, risk and procurement team, and 1 knowledge area that's about integrating all these areas, and hence constitute these 9. We also have tools and techniques. So Today what we will do is we give a very broad framework of what primarily tools are available, but as we move on to further sessions as well, we will detail out as well. So project management tools and techniques assist project managers and their teams in various aspects of project management. Some specific one includes, so there are project chart, we have NAT charts, networking diagrams, we have mind maps, we have cost estimates and earned value management. So there are various tools, right? From the two major one used in this are WBS, it's the work breakdown structure, which gives a scope. And we also have NAT charts, network diagrams as well, which are very predominantly used as tools. How project management relates to other disciplines. So if you see, much of the knowledge needed to manage project is unique to discipline of project management. Project managers must also have a knowledge of experience in general management and the application of the project. So whoever is running the show definitely should have knowledge about management itself. That means you should be aware of planning, organizing, controlling and measuring. So somebody who is into have managed these processes in possible other areas always helps in when we are looking at project management. This is a very interesting part of it. Now, we always knew that project management, we are talking as a word more colloquially in the last say 20, 30, 40 years. But historically, looking at history itself, some people argue that building of an Egyptian pyramid was a project, as was building the Great Wall of China. So all these 7 wonders, they say started off as a mission, as a project. So history goes back into BC actually. Most people consider the Manhattan Project to be the first project used as modern project management. This 3-year, $2 billion project has a separate project manager and a technical manager. So historically, if you see, we have projects ranging from a China wall to a pyramid as well. We'll also look into today few examples of NAT chart as well. So sample NAT chart in the Microscope project 2002. So there are, if you look into the chart, there are 2 distinct separate parts to it, and that's how it should be viewed at. One, on the left hand side, bifurcated descent and right handed, and there is a monthly division as well. So if you see the WBS or work breakdown system is in the left, and each task starts and have a finish date, and shown the right using a calendar time scale. Early NAT chart, first used in 1970, were drawn by hand. So left hand side, the task WBs, that means any major task, it's further divided into smaller tasks, and they are also given timelines, and which is also plotted on the calendar itself. So this gives a good visual representation of how things are at this point of time and how things are moving forward as well, and hence give a good control check mechanism and measuring performance. This is a sample network diagram. So network diagram, very important to understand. There are rectangles being part. There is a start date, there is the end date. Start is mentioned where it is started. We can also see the thickness of the lines as well. Thickness of the lines also represents the importance of that task, and also the length as well. See, we have this smaller length and we have this larger length. So larger arrows in between also shows the time duration required are longer, and there are specific start date, finish date mentioned where it is. So standard network diagrams are represented this way. Sample enterprise project management tool. So with the advent of ERP or enterprise resource planning, we have a lot of IT support coming in when it comes to project management. So then let's take an example of company's ABC project portfolio, where the scope, schedule, budget are mapped up to each project, and also it's coded by a color diagram with a color signal as well. So if it is, for example, going well, some problem, major problem. So task is boiled down at a smaller level. Okay, which tasks are on track? Which task needs attention? Which task needs immediate attention? And things could be boiled down to small activities. And we get to know what need to be focused. So this is an enterprise project management. We also look into the professions associated with project management. Okay. So job of in relation to an IT project management is a list of top 10 most demand IT skills. And since IT as an industry runs on projects, that means a lot of companies outsource their projects to third party, and they are managed and facilitated by an IT manager who is a project manager. Professional societies like the Project Management Institute have grown tremendously, and there are a lot of certifications also available these days to know and understand. And that's precisely one of the reasons that the module on project management exists in the management syllabus of ours as well, because it gives detail. The importance of project management has been growing so very well. So from your perspective as well, students, when you are listening, understanding different facets of project management, that becomes an added edge when you actually take up roles to work. Ethics now, so very important in the time that we are living in, when a lot of companies are shut down just because the ethics are compromised, and hence it is important to show trustworthiness in terms of ethics. So ethics is an important part of all professions, and the project managers often face ethical dilemmas. In order to earn certification as well, a rigorous examination process are put in place as well when it comes to project management. So you can apply in many areas. When you look at project management, the applications are huge and enormous. Project management applies to work as well as personal projects, as we have been discussing and detailing it out right from the beginning. Project management applies to many different disciplines as well, right from IT, construction, finance, sports, event planning, health industry, so on and so forth. That's huge. And project management skills can help in everyday life. So if I am to put it this way, that project management is a planning tool, or it's an organizing tool, or it's a measuring tool. It's a tool that helps you streamline whatever you do in a structured, organized, methodical way. And hence it becomes a very much value add when it comes to running a project. So we'll also look into project management from different perspectives as well in the outline. So project management has 5 processes as well, and we need to understand this well as well. 1, initiating a process. 2, planning the project, executing the plan, controlling execution of the plan, closing the project. So if you look into the process itself, that can be divided into 5 parts with 3 elements. The elements are task, resource, time. One way to look at it. And there are also critical success parameters. So how do you know that a particular project is doing? So just to check on that, it's always good to check how it's doing. So 1, on delivery time. So whatever the deadlines were given, has it met those deadlines? Within budget delivery. So what are the delivery schedules were given? It's not only about the end date, but also in between as well. Were they on schedule? High quality delivery. So it's also about what quality standards have you met when it came to delivering the project on time becomes important. Components of a project. Now we will look into one of an IT project as an example to facilitate it, and look into what various facets that does exist as components. So if you look into a project, there are primarily components are one, work product, schedule, task, participant. Now we would like to speak on a bit on each of it. So work product is the task or the work type. So what if a work is there, can the work be divided into smaller parts? So one of the old saying in management as it goes is that you don't try to boil an ocean, isn't it? We pick up small bits so that we can make an impact. Work product or dividing the work into small parts also gives you an edge in terms of what to focus more, what to focus less, what is more important, how to prioritize things becomes important. And again, an old saying, if everything is important, nothing is important, isn't it? So it's about prioritization. Scheduling. So from prioritization comes scheduling. So what's most important need to be ticked first. So in terms of time and value, we have a scheduler, and we also have the subtask as well. Participant, who would be doing what? So very important that it's not just about talent or skill, but also about who would initiate the process as well. Now this representation was a very simpler representation, isn't it, friends? But if you look into a real-time scenario of a very complex model, now let's try to figure out certain areas. Okay, this is the outcome that is required. This is a project. Work to be done. Now work could be further divided as work packages, breakdown of work structure, who will do what, the project function, department and team. We also have resource on one hand. We also have somebody who's controlling the show and measuring progress. We also have an integration tool of what's happening. We have a consumer on one hand to check these things. So this is how the things are put in place. So we have a schedule at hand, the task at hand, the work at hand, and the participant at hand. States of project. So they say that a project when it runs from point A to point B, or a starting point to an end point, there are various little milestones that a project goes through, and which we call states. So right from conception, definition, start, steady state, and sometime possibly a termination as well. So we all know that not every project goes for completion. Certain projects needs to be aborted or can be aborted, terminated. At what point of time it will start? These states need to be very well defined for a project. Project agreement. Now this is an important part when it comes to the structure of a project. So it is a written document for the client that defines. Now important that whenever a project is started, there has to be an agreement, an written agreement stating the scope, duration, cost, deliverables for the project, exact items, quantities, delivery dates, delivery locations. From a client perspective, individual or organization that specifies the requirements and aspects of the project required deliverables can be a contract, statement of work, a business plan, or a project charter. Deliverables could be work-based, based on documents, demonstration of functions, demonstration of non-functional requirements, and demonstration of subsystems. So basically what agreements gives us is, it is a detailed document defining what would be the project, what would be the scope, what would be the deadline, what delivery dates at what different locations as well. So a project agreement, a problem statement versus when it comes to the soft skill, a software project management group. So we have on one hand a sponsor or a client who needs something for his business organization. We have a project team, we have a project head. So we have a software project management plan. So we will refer it for the next couple of slides as SPMP, Software Project Management Plan. So we have a software management plan. There is a problem statement. So a problem statement gives an idea of the need. Now understand that any project, friends, is actually solving a problem. If a project is not solving a problem, it's not a value addition, isn't it? You can only add a value if you're solving something. And on the periphery, you might not look that it's solving a problem, obvious problem, but it solves the problem. And so it's so important to understand this. So we need to have a problem statement. There is also a project agreement, which we spoke about. That means there is a written documentation as well. So when we look into the template, what all things will have? It will have a front matter, introduction, project organization, managerial process, technical process, work element, schedule, budget, and optional inclusions as well. And we'll look into one by one. So front matter, when it comes to the software project management, the front matter would include the title page, that means define the scope of the project, revision sheet, update history as it moves forward, preface, scope and purpose, tables of content, figures and tables. So this is actually we call the indexing of a project. So it's a written document, it specifies what the project is, it gives schedulers of the delivery and time schedule as well. Introduction of SPMP, it gives an overview, that's the product summary. The deliverables are mentioned in dates. It also gives plans for any anticipated change. Now it's very important part of project, friends, because we know since the project is taken for 6 months or possibly a year or 2 years, with changing times, cost of few of the elements might change. So hence those things need to be part of the plan. Any unnecessary change. Reference material. So any reference required would be looked upon, and also definitions and acronyms are used accordingly. Project organization would include the process model, that means the relationship and the elements involved, the structure, that is internal management and the organizational chart, the organizational relation with entities, what relationship would exist in terms of subcontracts, commercial, etc. The responsibilities, who is responsible for what? That means major functions and activities, that includes the nature of each, who is in charge, matrix of the project functions and activities versus responsible individuals. So we'll also look into what kind of things will be taken care by whom and who would be responsible for all those functions becomes very important from each of that. So if whatever we are seeing, if we want to put it on floor, it will look something like this. So we have a client on one hand, we have a client license, we have management and consultants. A clear demarcation in terms of license, we have a cross-functional team in terms of the architecture, documentation, user interface. We also have in management a development team, which will have a client team and the server team. So we'll have a system, subsystem associated with each of these, and we have an infrastructure team as well when it comes to IT support. So this is what an overview would look like. The managerial process. So we'll also look into the people involved in the project. What is their scope? What would be their role as well? So management objectives and priorities are put across. Describes the management philosophies, priorities and requirements, assumptions, dependencies and constraints. External events, the project depends on constraints under which the project has to be conducted. If at all there would be a constraint, there would be an element of risk as well. So we know that any project, since it's working in a dynamic environment, an element of risk will always be associated. So how do we manage those risks in terms of cost? Monitoring and controlling mechanisms in terms of charts, in terms of diagrams, in terms of enterprise resource planning. So frequency and reporting plans as well, and the staffing plan. So it's also about with absence of people on board, how things are going to be sorted off. So members and types of personnel required to conduct it as well. So examples of risk, these are interesting parameters, friends, and these are a very important part when it comes to project management. So let's look at the risk involved. One, the contractual risk itself. That means that what do you do if the client becomes bankrupt? Now, a very important risky proposition, isn't it? The client itself has become bankrupt. So how is he going to pay back to you? Size of the project. That means that what do you do if you feel the project is too large, too large to handle, or too large to take it forward? Complexity of the project. That means what do you do if the requirements are multiplying during analysis? Now, it's very important to figure out. I have mentioned this before. As the project has started, in between the client has making changes, and hence that's a challenge. Personal, how do you hire people? Is there a danger of people leaving the project? So what if you have hired people and they don't stay on board? Client acceptance. That means what do you do if the client does not like the developed prototype? So if you're making a prototype before you're initiating, what if the client doesn't like it? So these all are the risks involved, and this risk will come for sure at some point of time or in some way or the other. So how do we manage those risks becomes important. Technical process. So any project would have a technical fallout to it, and the technical areas would involve things from different types, and those would be methods, tools and techniques. Specify the methods, tools and techniques to be used in the project. Software documentation. Discuss the documentation plan. Project support functions. So in terms of plan to ensure quality assurance. Configuration management plan. Verification validation plan. The plans can be included in this section, or there is a reference to a separate document. So we will have all these functions going on together when it comes to technical process. And technical process, they say, is the heart of any technical project. Description of work packages. Now we saw that WBS is a world over accepted model when it comes to breakdown of work. They say that we have mentioned as a quote, you don't try to boil an ocean, isn't it? We take in bits and parts. So WBS is work breakdown structure. So a project is broken down into pieces, into manageable tasks. So it's a hierarchical decomposition of the project into activities and tasks. So a major project is divided into activities and tasks. Dependencies between tasks. That means that an important temporal relation must be preceded by. Dependency graph shown temporal dependency of the activity. So it's important when looking into scheduler. So whenever a project is broken down into smaller tasks or activities, scheduling that task becomes important, and hence every task is always mentioned. Before you do this task, it has to be preceded by this. That means this is followed by something else, just to see that it's in line. Work packages versus work product. How are they different? So definition from IE standards stands at work package. What is a work package? Work package is a specification of the work to be accomplished in an activity or a task. They are specifications. What is a work product? Work product, any tangible item that results from a project function, activity or task. So work product are the tangible items, whereas work package is a specification. Project baseline. Project baseline are a work product that has been formally reviewed and agreed upon. So the project baseline comes from the work product. Project deliverable. That means a work product to be delivered to a client. So these are the common terminologies that are being used in a project management. How can we model a work product? Now we saw that how to define work product. Work package are specifications, work product are tangibles. So what is a tangible item in a work product? Requirement analysis document is done, software management plan is drafted, agenda and minutes are put across, and how do we model tangible items? So work product is actually a function where internal work product and project deliverables are accounted to, and we come into tangible things. Work product, we are very clear, has to come to with a tangible. So when we are looking at this chart, it shows that there is a set of products, so outcome has to be there. So from a work product with a set of work products, we have an outcome. So on one side we have internal work product, we have project deliverables, we get work product, then we have series of work products, we get the outcomes. Work products are also related to activities as well. That means how do we model this? So work product is further bifurcated as task and activities. And so work breakdown structure, if you look into, it's a hierarchical representation of all the tasks in a project is called the work breakdown structure. So let's quickly recap what we've done in comes to WBS. So we are saying that any project, first, if there is a tangible work to be done, it's called as work product, right? If it's a specification, it's a work package. Work product can be further divided into tasks and activities, right? And when we have a hierarchical representation of all tasks and activities, it's called as WBS or work breakdown structure. So the work breakdown structure, we have a task. The tasks are parts of activities. What would be a better model? So some models could be work divided from tasks and activities. So all hierarchical representation or all bits and pieces of all tasks and activities put together form the work breakdown structure. How do we create a WBS? So two major philosophies are involved as well. Activity oriented, so it could be writing a book, get it reviewed, suggest changes, got it published. Or it could be result oriented. So one, it could be activity driven, the other could be result driven, wherein result could be put on the heads of chapters. Which is the best one in managing, depending on the project type? Development of the prototype, developing a protocol, or project team consists of many inexperienced beginners, or project team has many experienced developers. So based on the type, a product type is divided into tasks and activities, and who will be handling those tasks and activities as well. Establishing. So how do we go on to estimate for establishing WBS? So establishing a WBS in terms of percentile or percentage of a total effort. Small project we generally define by 7%. If there is a small set of 7 people, it's called as small project, at least 7% of 0.5 PM. Medium project 300 people, large project 7,000 person per month. So because small, medium and large are relative context. So in the context of project management, small is 7, medium is 3,000, 300 and large project are 7,000 people in the task. Now, if you are looking into these types, let's also try to figure out and understand this in terms of an example so that we can put all these things in perspective. Okay. So what are the activities? So let's look into what are the activities that are needed to build a house. So what is the project? Scope well defined, build a house. What are the activities that are required to build a house? So now we will get into details about how it could be divided into work types. So since house we are taking as an example, which because we all can relate to, because house is something that we all associate with. We might be directly or indirectly involved in building a house or seeing a house being constructed anywhere. So total activity. So let's first figure out total activities when it comes to building a house. Surveying, excavation, request permits, buy material, lay foundation, build outside wall, installing plumbing, roofing, flooring, electrician, the entire activities. Finding these activities is a brainstorming activity. It is requires similar activities during analysis. Now, since house building we are taking as an example or analogy to look into other facets as well. So these activities, if you see, are all part of house building activity. Now let's look into now the hierarchy of the activities. So if you see, building of a house consists of preparing the building site, building the exterior, building the interior. Now we are getting into the structure and layouting as well. Preparing the building site. Now the first one consists of surveying, excavation, buying of material, laying of this foundation. So what we are doing now, the task, these are the tasks, right? And these tasks now will have activities. So if you see the product work, we are getting into bifurcated as tasks and those tasks also as activities. Let's look into a partial breakdown structure of the activity. So we have a building house and let's look at the WBS or breakdown structure. So the build structure, we have to build foundation, build walls, build roof. Then we have to install plumbing, which will come to install sewage pipes, cold and hot water taps, install tub and sinks. We have installed heating, installed electricity. So we have take a part model of the WBC and we have bifurcated into task and activities in further. Let's look into the dependency graph. Now we have mentioned in an earlier slide that dependency graph is based on the fact that you cannot do all activities together, and hence it is always mentioned when you are planning and routing the activity that this has to be preceded by. That means there is an actual flow when it comes to prioritization. This should come after this, and that's where dependency comes in. So the work breakdown structure does not show any temporal dependence among the activities or tasks. So if you see, can we excavate before getting a permit? Cannot. How much time does the whole project need if I know the individual times, what can be done in parallel? Are there any critical activities that can slow down the project significantly? Now, these are the few variables that we should know as we are delving into that subject, or if you are dividing the task into activities. Temporal dependencies are shown in the dependency graph as well. So, the dependency graph is put up in a kind of network diagram, in kind of layouting. So we have a start on one hand and the finish on the other hand. So we are moving from left to right. So we want to survey, we need to permit excavation, biometal, lay foundation, build outside wall. Once the outside wall is there, then two things open out: plumbing, internal, external, electricity, wall board, paint, both ends, installing, roofing, finish. So this, it gives a good dependency graph and shows that you cannot do a right side thing without doing the first precedence on the left. So this can only happen if it is moved up in a systematic way. The activity like biomaterial must precede the activity lay foundation. So that means that the precedence dependency has to be cleared as well. Description of work packages. Now we mentioned and defined work packages earlier by saying that work packages are defined by specifications, and that's so critical important. For example, resource required estimates the total resource required to complete a project, numbers and type of personnel, so we are specified now, computer time, office and laboratory facilities, travel, maintenance and training requirements, budget, schedule, estimate of duration of each task. Now, so all these, if you see the work packages, will have specifications defined, will have numbers defined. Lot of these work packages will come in numbers as well. Let's look into one PERT chart as well. Now PERT chart are good reflective indicators to put schematic representation on chart. So we have start to finish, again start to finish. So we have surveying, so we have now plotting a work schedule with a work package. So work package, now if you see on this chart, there are also a lot of numbers coming in now. 010, 010, 020, which date, by what time, how many people will do it. So there are now a lot of numbers are associated with it, and each of these numbers are detrimental. So once you have a good topographic view about it, we get to know how things are moving as well. So each activity has a start time and an estimated duration as well. Goals. Now what are the goals when it comes to PERT chart? And the goals are determination of the total project time, determination of critical path. Now it's so very important to define the critical path, which path it will take, because we have a dependency route as well. Determination of slack time. So based on what times are available, there would be times that the growth is slow. Function, activities and tasks. So certain work types could be further divided into functions, activities and tasks. So a project has a duration which consists of function, activities and tasks. So it would have a project, function. So a project will have function, which will then further have activities and tasks. So it will be divided into any of these. So let's also understand what is a function. A function is an activity or set of activities that span the duration of the project. So a group of activities is called a function. So just like just like from a bigger representation. For example, a hand will have a complete hand will have fingers, wrist, the joint. This is a complete representation of a hand. Similarly, function is a set of group of activities. So an activity, so that's an activity is a set of tasks put together. So let's take an example to understand what functions are. So examples, it could be project management, configuration management, documentation, quality control, training, appraisal, procurement, house cleaning, safety, caretaking, transportation, warehousing, payroll. Now all these are examples are putting up in terms of functions, and group of all functions, as we have defined earlier as well, is a project. So we have functions, we have a project. They say group of function is a project, group of activities is a function, and group of task is activity. So a smallest unit of work subject to management. It is, so when you are speaking of task, it is the smallest unit for smallest team or smallest person who would be doing a particular set of job. Task is small enough for adequate planning and tracking. It is large enough to avoid micromanagement. So it need not necessarily has to be the very smallest unit, but large enough that it is considered as a system or a unit. So task is the smallest function. So if you are looking at WBS as a hierarchy, so group of function is a project, group of activities is a function, and group of task is an activity. So task, if we want to define task into various variables, would be smallest unit of management accountability, atomic unit of planning and tracking. So it is the smallest unit where it is tracked, controlled and measured. Tasks have finite duration. It needs resources, produce tangible results. That means they have documented code as well. Specification of a task are work package in terms of name, description, work to be done, precondition for starting, duration, resources required, work product to be produced, acceptance criteria for it, and risk involved. Now these are the various factors which are part of task. Now important to understand that task is one, the smallest unit which could be tracked, controlled, measured. So if any project is running and if any project is lagging behind, or if any project is facing an error, so the first tracking point is going to the task, going to check each of these tasks, and each of these tasks is still further measured and controlled. So based on start date, end date, looking into which tasks are on time, which is lagging behind, what are the things that had a predefined route as well. So what factors contribute to it. Hence, if we can boil down to the nodal points, then managing those tasks becomes easier. Action items. So what are these action items? So definition of action item is a task assigned to a project participant. What, who, when. So we are looking into now from the personnel perspective as well. So when we are looking at project, it's always about the what, but we also want the who and the when. That means heuristics for duration. So what would be the bylaws? What would be the rules and regulations for duration? to be done within a week or 2 weeks. Action item should appear on the meeting agenda in the status section. So whenever we are dividing it into activities and tasks, it is also now put apart as what action would be taken, what action in terms of numbers would be taken as well. Examples of to-do list. For example, to-do list is an action list. So unit test class for develop project plan. Now all to-do list is actually an action list for the task. And examples of action list or items could be Bob posts the next agenda for the context team meeting before September 10-12 noon. A very specific action. The test team develop the test plan by September 18. So timelines are given. The objective is pretty defined in terms of task as well, and hence the action item. So when we look into activities, to put it on the map, it is a major unit of work with precise dates. So it is a unit of work and also have timelines about dates as well. So we have, once again we'll figure it out. So function, group of function is project, group of activities is function, group of tasks is activities, and activities also consist of smaller activities or tasks and culminates in project milestones. So all these actionable areas are sorted and put across as milestones so that it could be tracked, measured as well. Laws of project management. Now, we have been looking into certain dimensions of project management, but there are few laws that are pretty interesting as well when we look into it. One, project progress quickly until they are 90% complete. Then they remain at 90% complete forever. Now it looks and hears as a sarcasm, but a lot of time people have experienced this, that people reach 90% pretty quickly as per plan, as per design, and that goes on. But after that, it doesn't move. And if I'm to give a similar analogy, let's take cricket as an example. People reach 90 and people don't even realize how they reach 90. But from 90 to 100, the runs, the flow of runs becomes very slow. People, there's a lot of pressure built up. And a lot of time we have heard about nervous 90s when it comes to cricketing skills. So when we speak of 90%, they say the point that need to be figured out is the last 10% to be covered for a project requires that extra momentum, that extra thrust, that extra bit of effort as well to go through is what the message is. When things are going well, something will go wrong. Now, this is a good belief to have. So when things are going well, at any point of time, things might change. Things will go wrong. So that means that also gives a good clue and hang to the fact that the more we are prepared well. So they say that if things can go wrong, that means I have an option B going, I have an option C going, so I have an alternative measure as well. So, and it also creates a mindset for saying that things can go wrong. And third one is an interesting one as well. When things just can't get worse, they will. That means that you feel that you are the rock bottom of getting worse. I mean, you have done, dusted, you feel that you've seen the worst. And you feel that you can't really go deeper than this because that's the rock bottom. And the point is, you will still find the pit, still deep down. And the point is, these are experiential statements that people have been expressing. What does it gives also shows us is the dynamicity of the market that people are working in. That markets have been turbulent, they have been fastly evolving, changes have been rapid, technology is changing as well rapidly. People's mindset has been changing, communication has revolutionized the way people connect, think big time as well. When things appear to be going better, you have overlooked something. So that also means a precautionary note as well. And if project content is allowed to change freely, things do change pretty often as well. And we also need to figure out that we have kind of discussed few elements of the discussion, but we also want to figure out that how is management different than a project management. So if you see that management is usually defined in terms of functions of 4 pillars that we spoke about: planning, organizing, directing, controlling, and communicating. These are the 4-5 key elements that we always associate with when it comes to management. Management also we define as getting things done through people. So various other definitions of management as well. We primarily say when we speak of management, it is about planning, organizing, controlling, measuring, communicating, and also we say that management is a lot about getting the things done from other people. That's what few classical thoughts when it comes to management exist. Let's look into project management, and we look into how it is slightly different from the way we take it. So project management is defined in the context of a project. That's so very important. So management has a very broad overview of how things look at it, but when we speak of project management, it sets a context to that particular project. It's so very important, and that means that project management tries to accomplish a specific task. Now that's so very important to understand. When we speak of management, there is no particular task is involved. So if you see, the earlier part of the discussion was all processes. When we speak of planning, organizing, controlling, measuring, they are all processes. But when we are adding a project to a management, that means there is a specific defined task to be done within a time frame with defined resources. Now there are a couple of elements that pop up or crop up in a project management that need not come up primarily in a management. So in a project management, we have a defined task, we have a deadline, and we have resources. Now with these 3 variables, the task need to be accomplished, and that's what the critical primary differentiators are there when it comes to project management. So this was the last slide when it comes to the module. So let's quickly recap whatever we have done so far in this module. So first we have understood the why. Why do we need to understand project management more, or why were we studying project management? Reason number 1, one fourth of the GDP is run through projects, through government or non-government organization. Hence, on the fiscal note or financial notes, the impact is huge. What is project management? We have tried to define it from various perspectives, and we have defined project management from the perspective of a particular set of activities to be done with set of deadlines with limited resources. We have defined some parameters in terms of deadlines. Then we moved on and understood how various technologies could be used, right? From a NUT diagram to network diagrams to WS method as well. So we have looked into WS method today to identify more. That's the work breakdown system. And work breakdown system, we have looked into elements of functions